Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I did my video yesterday discussing the IPF and EDCO and the ban going on there with any of their people attending his seminars. Lots of people chimed in and pointed out this is WADA's rules, this is the OIC's rules, this is just what they're having to follow. And guys, first of all, let's just understand that that is the strictest interpretations possible of those rules, and they didn't have to call the guy out on their website. Even Johnny Candido admitted to that. And this highlights part of the problem with this fairy tale that the IPF has, that they've let a bunch of powerlifters to drink the Kool-Aid on, that powerlifting is going to be an Olympic sport one day. This is an example of the negatives of even trying to make it an Olympic sport. This is the sort of stuff that's going to destroy powerlifting and the sport that it always has been and has been intended to be by all the people who've done it for decades. Now, the first thing that people need to consider is powerlifting is never going to be an Olympic sport. The IPF has been working on this for over 20 years, and they're really no closer to making this happen than they were 15 years ago. People need to understand that. There is already Olympic weightlifting. It is already a more technical, more specific type of weightlifting that is very clear, and it's judging easier to judge, that has a much longer lasting tradition already at the international level. It is already an existing sport. Powerlifting would be considered just a lesser version of that at the international level. And this is coming from someone who has competed passionately in powerlifting. I'm just being honest with you guys here. Powerlifting doesn't really make the cut in terms of being an Olympic level sport compared to something like Olympic lifting. You already have weightlifting in the Olympics. You're not going to add another division like that with these extra lifts. It is probably not going to happen because, again, it's just the same basic thing, but with less tradition behind it, less technique behind it, and it's more difficult to judge because of the nature of some of the exercises. They're simply more difficult for the judges to clearly see who has competed things or not. That's why we have 3 and 4 referees at events actually watching different angles trying to determine if a lift is legal or not, and there's still debates about it. You get that in powerlifting. It is just simply not going to happen. Furthermore, powerlifting has always been considered an underground sport. It has traditions of it being like an underground sport, and the IPF has really, in a way, destroyed that, and it's not what any of the powerlifters for decades really wanted it to be about. And when you take a sport like this, it's always had a grassroots following. It's always been an underground sport. And in the name of trying to make the sport an Olympic sport, you ostracize one of the greatest legends in the sport of all time and tell people that they can't even compete anymore if they go watch one of his seminars or lectures. And actually, under some of those rules, if they even got nutrition advice directly from Ed Cohen, technically, if you went and bought a nutrition book for powerlifters by Ed Cohen, you technically, if you were caught in possession of it or having bought it under the most strict interpretation of those rules, you would be banned from competition. And this is the problem that we run into. This whole thing of trying to make it an Olympic sport basically destroys the entire history of the sport in a way, because it changes rules and puts crazy stipulations in place that ostracize all the previous members of it. It ostracizes the traditions of the sport, and it removes those things. And again, what you saw with Ed Cohen is a perfect example of the negatives you have there. Furthermore, people need to understand, all these people in Western countries are screaming for powerlifting to become an Olympic sport. Well, that'll be the end of it, because that's going to reduce the number of lower level competitions. Once it becomes an Olympic sport, they're going to have to be more regulated, all the powerlifting meets as a whole. And what you guys are going to find is that all the people in the Western countries are not going to win anymore. There are differences in the way that the people train in Russia and China and other places. They have plenty of selectively bred athletes. They have multi-generational athletes, and they dedicate their whole lives to training. You look at a lot of these lifters and you look at the way that they Olympic lift, they're in the gym lifting 40 hours a week sometimes. You don't see Americans and Brits and Frenchmen and other people doing these things. They're not going to dedicate that sort of time to it. You're not going to have people who have just the best athletic genetics. All of our elite genetics in our sports go into things like football, baseball, soccer, things like that. All of these sports get our elite genetics. We don't have many left because people want to go be millionaires to trickle into Olympic level powerlifting. So because people have these other opportunities, if they have amazing genetics for explosive power and things, that they go compete in sports that are going to make them wealthy. They're not going to go waste their time with powerlifting. So you have a lesser genetic pool to pull from. Far lesser genetic pool that's definitely not going to be hand selected like, say, Russia and China, who are going to dominate this sport. And we don't have the same sort of mindset for training and the training ethic and the training protocols that they utilize in these countries. And you're going to find is that the best in America, the best that they can produce, is not going to compete with some of these Asian and, again, Eastern Bloc countries, they're going to crush us in competition because they're going to start putting real athletes in there. We're not going to do that because we certainly didn't do it with Olympic lifting, and we don't have any to spare for powerlifting. So if that ever did happen, and it won't happen, guys, it's never going to happen, but if it did, our people are not going to be competitive anyways. We're just going to lose the Olympics for all of those reasons. So people need to put that in perspective. Powerlifting is not only never going to be an Olympic sport, and the off chance that it does, that it won't, we're not going to win anywhere in the West anymore anyways at it. We're not going to win. We're just going to create more competition that we can't beat. And we're going to have the same people trying to compete. And then on top of that, it really seems to destroy the traditions of this underground sport. And the IPF has done a really good job of just destroying those traditions and trying to kill them out. And it makes powerlifting no longer what it ever really was. All they've done with it is turned it into a lesser respected version of Olympic lifting. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.